Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 12 Reunion Part 1. And first things first, I have to say that my nerves are shot. A lot went down. I was thoroughly entertained. Garcelle, I am so proud of you because to say that you finally let these ladies know that their behavior is disgusting, I was here for it. And personally, I feel like Garcelle should have and could have gone a lot harder, but I was still here for her, putting her foot down and saying, you know what? Here's what we're not going to do. Now, you guys already know how this works. I have a lot to say, so I want you all to get comfortable, grab a glass of some IYLIA wine, okay? This is a fabulous Black woman-owned wine company, and the wine is absolutely delicious. Now, when I had IYLIA come on my channel 2 weeks ago, they let me know that you all loved it because the wine sold out. So for my subscribers who are still waiting for an order, just know that it's on their way because they are restocking. But you all loved it. Their wine is amazing. This is the Moscatel, and I am so excited to pour up a glass, okay? Because, like I said, nothing goes better than Housewives and some IYLIA wine. Cheers, guys. So good. And as you all know, there's a 20% off discount code at checkout. Use it. It's Brooke Ashley 20. And don't forget to follow IYLIA Wine on social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. But amazing wine, and of course, all the information to purchase is down below in the description box. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because we don't have a minute to spare. So we start this reunion off like we always do with the ladies arriving on set first thing in the morning. And it was so funny because Garcelle was prepared. She had her sage out and she was saging the room and she was saging Crystal. So we see Andy arrive on set. The set is beautifully decorated and the set is of the Beverly Hills Hotel. Now, seeing that I just read House of Hilton, I thought it was a little bit of shade or a nod to Kathy, Kim, and Kyle's mom, Big Kathy, because she used to be at the Beverly Hills Hotel all the time at the Polo Lounge. Now we have Rinna show up on set, and she has a stack of manila envelopes. And I was like, girl, whatever receipts you think you have, you're wasting your time. And I don't understand why Rinna thinks that she's going to vindicate herself because she's not. She has said and done so many evil and vile things, so I'm confused as to what she thinks she has on anybody. But I said, okay, girl, anything for attention, anything for a moment, but I can assure you that you have nothing in those envelopes. And I honestly feel like Rinna should not have been in the first seat next to Andy. I think that Garcelle and Sutton deserve that spot because they were carrying this show on their backs. But again, I digress. So now everybody else arrives on set and now the reunion can begin. Andy starts it off by pointing out that Diana is not there because she's sick with COVID. I was like, now we all know that that's a lie. Diana is just fine. She's just too much of a coward to show her face because she showed her ass the entire time and was a complete flop. And I'm really screaming at how Diana has to be one of the only housewives who has never met Andy in person. Because this entire season, she has yet to go on Watch What Happens Live. She's not on the after show. And then for her to not even show up at the reunion in person, I'm like, girl, you do know that you will not be asked back for next season, right? Andy starts it off by saying that they all look great. It's one of the chicest reunions ever. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't loving anybody's look. I didn't like Erika's look. I thought she looked crazy. It was giving, I don't know what it was giving, but it was giving nothing. I mean, that blue, girl, you can tell that all that money is gone because her looks are not hitting like they used to. Kyle The dress was cute, but Kyle in the ponytail, like, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. I thought Garcelle's dress and the boots looked good sitting down. And I thought that Garcelle's face was beat. I liked the hair. I thought she looked pretty. Sutton's look, it was a complete miss for me. I don't know what look they were trying to go for, but I wasn't feeling it. So Andy kicks it off with something fun, and he starts discussing their charities. He says that the episode where they were all discussing Dorit's charity name, Homeless Not Toothless, was some of the best 8 minutes of television that they've ever seen. So now he says, does everybody know the name of Dorit's charity? So they all say yes, and they all say Homeless Not Toothless. Now, I was surprised that Andy didn't get on Dorit about that name. I thought he was going to press her on it. Like, you do realize how insensitive that is, right? Listen, I understand that the charity does great work providing dental services for people who don't have access, but at the same time, that name could undergo a change. I'm just saying. To say, well, I might be homeless, but at least I have all my teeth, that's a bit insulting. So now Andy brings up Kyle's charity with Jamie Lee Curtis. So Andy says, well, actually, Jamie Lee Curtis is here today. So they're all like, really? And then he's like, just kidding. So then he says, no, she's actually here. And now Jamie Lee Curtis walks out. Now, let me tell you something. Jamie Lee Curtis is an icon, a legend. I love her. And I was geeked that she was there. But I'm wondering if celebrity appearances on reunions is going to now be a thing. Because remember on Potomac last year, Nicki Minaj was the guest host. So now we have Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm like, okay, are we going to see other celebs pop up on other franchises? I'm just wondering. And if that's the case, can we please have some content creators as hosts for some of these reunions? Because sometimes the questions that really need to be asked don't get asked. I'm just putting it out there. I mean, if we're going to switch things up, then let's switch things up. So everybody's freaking out that Jamie Lee Curtis is there. And I have to say, I think what I like the most about her is that you can tell that she's very down to earth, just very kind, very nice, very personable. Like, you just get that vibe. So she sits down and joins them, and Jamie Lee Curtis lets them know that she had no idea how strong the Real Housewives impact is. And then she adds that her appearing on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was the single biggest day for her charity. I thought it was really awesome that Jamie Lee Curtis actually rebranded her charity name. So now it's called the Chicest Children's Charity. And then in honor of Dorit, she named one of the wind chimes after her called the Dorit Chic Wind Chime. And did you guys see how excited Dorit was when Jamie Lee Curtis personally thanked her and said, Dorit, your genuine enthusiasm helped my charity so much. Like, thank you. So now the icon herself thanks all of the ladies, and she has these custom-made pumpkins with their faces on them. And she's like, that's my gift from me to you. Now the legendary Jamie Lee Curtis leaves. And now we really get into some things. And we started off discussing Garcelle's son, Jax, who was harassed on social media by these racist trolls. Now, was it just me? Or did Erika and Rinna look guilty during this part? I noticed that Erika was squirming in her seat. They didn't want to make eye contact with Garcelle. They were both looking at the floor or at the ceiling at certain times during this conversation. I just got very guilty vibes from the both of them. So my girl Garcelle is visibly shaken up talking about this again. And she says that it's the cruelest thing that you could ever do to a child. It was Jax's first week starting high school, and one of the trolls sent him her Playboy pictures back in the day. So Garcelle adds that what hurt them the most was when somebody commented to Jax that you would have a knee in your neck if it wasn't for your white daddy. So Andy brings up how Rinna was one of the first people to say something and condemn the attacks on Instagram. And Rinna says, yeah, of course, because you shouldn't do that to a child. Like, that is unacceptable. It's disgusting. So now Andy jumps in and adds that the amount of trauma that all the ladies have faced on social media throughout this season has been hard for everybody. So Rinna and Erika say, yeah, it has been. Like, don't threaten our lives, okay? That's not cool. And I was like, shut up. You guys have gotten backlash over things that you have said and done. Do not compare the consequences to your actions to what Garcelle and her son have gone through. I was just so annoyed. It's anything for Erika and Rinna to act like they're victims. And if you guys were getting death threats, I wouldn't be surprised if you paid for some bots to send you death threats to make it seem like, you know, we're innocent, you know, we got death threats too. Like, you know, of course we wouldn't do that to Jax because we know what it's like. I wouldn't be surprised. I put nothing past either one of them. I don't think that Rinna and Erika are sincere people. So Rinna coming out to condemn the attacks on social media in defense of Jax and Garcelle, I don't know how sincere it was. I don't. I think that Rinna did that to take the heat off of herself and make herself appear to be a decent person. Just my opinion. But I don't think that she really cares about Garcelle and Garcelle's family like that. So now Andy brings up that there were bots involved in this whole mess, and he goes on to ask Garcelle if she ever thought that anybody in this group was behind this attack. Now, when Garcelle said that she did suspect somebody in this group was up to all this, I peeped Kyle, Rinna, and Erika's faces, and I just wanted to know, why are your faces twisted up? Why do you seem upset that she would suspect that it was one of you guys? You guys have been very nasty to Garcelle. Kyle, I didn't forget how you thought it was the funniest thing that Erika was sitting there cursing Jax out. You and Mauricio and Dorit and PK were sitting at your house saying, oh my gosh, it was just so funny when Erika said F you to Jax. So spare me the confusion of how could Garcelle think that when we've seen it with our own two eyes how you guys operate. So Garcelle goes on to say that it's been a pattern of attacking my children, and I've been feeling like I'm not wanted on this show, so what better way to run me off this show than to go after my children? Because when you go after them, you go after me. I said, Garcelle, you better say it. And Erika, I noticed that you had your head down when Garcelle said it's been a pattern of attacking my children. Because we saw firsthand how you acted at Garcelle's birthday party. Honestly, had Garcelle went upside your head, she would have been justified, because how dare you? You crossed a major boundary. You don't do certain things. Garcelle went too easy on you. You're very blessed that Garcelle has restraint, because I know a lot of people, a lot of you guys let me know in the comments that had Erika cursed at one of your children, her teeth would have been knocked out and her eye would have been blackened. And Garcelle's assessment of not feeling wanted on this show, she's correct. The Fox Force 5 has made it known ever since she got on this show that she's not welcome. And they have iced her out. And is Garcelle and Sutton on an island by themselves? And we know how Rinna, Kyle, Dorit, and Erika do. They will run somebody off this show in a heartbeat. They did it to LVP. They did it to Denise Richards. And they tried to do it to Sutton and Garcelle last season and this season. So Garcelle is right to assume that this might have been a ploy to get me off the show. Personally, I feel like Garcelle is going to be on this show for a long time. I could see her being on here for another 6 or 7 seasons and going down as one of the best housewives to ever do it. Honestly, she has a really great assessment of what's going on. She calls things out. She's not afraid to speak her mind. She's calm, she's collected, she's graceful. I mean, she's the epitome of what a real housewife should be. And she uses logic and reasoning, and she's of sound mind, which is missing from a lot of these other ladies. But Garcelle, you're not crazy at all to think that somebody would do this to run you off this show, because we all see the craziness. I was happy to hear that Garcelle does have an investigation going on to find out who purchased these bots to attack her and her family. And I noticed that Kyle, Rinna, and Erika looked a bit scared when she said that. And I said, yeah, because we might find out that it's one of you guys. Or if it wasn't you directly, maybe somebody on your team. But Andy makes it clear that he hates all this mess happening on social media, and he says that he, along with Bravo, condemns all of this. And while I'm happy that Andy did speak up and make that statement, I need to see some more action. I need to see some heads start rolling. I need to see some folks start getting fired. That's what I need. Because saying we at Bravo condemn this, that's nice, that's cute, but we need more than that. This show has lost its magic, and I just really need for things to start changing. We need a complete overhaul of this cast, because the Fox Force 5 versus everybody else, that's not gonna work for me. Now we move on to the Dorit segment, and I'm not gonna hold you guys, but this portion was a bit boring. I found my eyes closing because it went on a bit too long. And I don't think that Dorit is entertaining. So I was like, yeah, can we speed this up? But of course, Andy brings up the robbery and he's asking her how she was affected. So Dorit says that going through a home invasion, every aspect of your life is changed, and how she has trouble getting out of bed each day. It affects her confidence because she feels like, well, how can I protect my children going forward? Then she adds that after the home invasion, she feels like she's grieving the life that she had before she was robbed. So Andy wants to know, how is Dorit able to stay so cool and calm while the robbers were in the house, you know, threatening her and pointing a gun in her face? And she says that the mama instinct came in and she was letting them know, like, look, take whatever you want, but I just need for me and my babies to be untouched and unharmed. She pretty much goes on to add that she wanted to let the robbers know that she was not a threat to them whatsoever. Now, regardless of how I feel about Dorit, I will say that at the end of the day, I'm glad that she and her children weren't harmed. And that's very quick thinking for her to just say, look, take whatever you want. I'm not a threat to you. Just don't hurt me or my children. Like, I just want to be here for my kids. That's it. In a situation like that, you don't know what you might do. So the fact that she was able to keep it together until they left speaks volumes. So now Andy brings up how there were a lot of people who feel like this robbery was staged. It was a setup for PK to bring us the BS and stage an insurance fraud. And Dorit says, Andy, please, like, I can hardly get out the bed some days. I am not thinking or listening to what other people are saying that they don't believe this. Like, who could stage something like this? Now, let me just say this. You guys know earlier on in this season, I let it be known that I was neutral regarding this robbery, because I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't have some questions, because I did find it strange that the robbers were so cooperative. They left her phone outside for her. I was like, what robber is gonna do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just found that to be very shocking, very uncharacteristically nice. Like, okay, we're gonna rob you blind, but yeah, girl, we'll leave your phone outside for you to call your husband and 911. There are reports that PK allegedly had a lot of gambling debts in Vegas. He owed a lot of those hotels money, allegedly. So the thought did cross my mind, like, maybe this was a scheme to get some insurance money and pay off their debts. It crossed my mind. But overall, I'm glad that Dorit and her children are safe and that they weren't harmed in the home invasion. And Rinna is so dramatic, talking about just disgusting. How disgusting of people to say that. Like, just disgusting. Like, just so gross. And I said, girl, shut up. All the nasty things that you say about people when you were the one accusing Yolanda about lying about having Lyme disease. I didn't forget about that, Rinna. That was very disgusting of you to do that. It was nasty when Kyle told Lisa Vanderpump, well, shit happens, when Lisa Vanderpump was crying about losing her brother after he took his own life. That's disgusting. So Andy wants to know, why does Dorit think that the robbers gave her her phone back? And she says that she was very cooperative, she showed them where everything was, and she was calm. So Andy says, did they catch the robbers? And Dorit says, unfortunately, it's still an open investigation. Andy had me screaming when he was like, did you replace all the items? And then Dorit was like, well, you know, I would never buy the same thing again. And I said, Andy, don't set Dorit up to be robbed again. If I were Dorit, I'd be like, Andy, now you know I can't answer that. So while Dorit's going on, Andy swallows a yawn. And Dorit says, Andy, am I boring you? Like, you yawned again. This is the second time in a row that you've done that while I've been talking. And Andy's like, Dorit, I'm sorry, okay? Like, I couldn't help it. And he's like, you're not boring me. I just had to yawn. And I relate to Andy with that because there are times where I'll yawn and I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be rude, but it will just happen at the worst possible times. And it usually happens if I'm nervous about something, if I'm anxious, like I'll yawn. It's really weird. And when that happens, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like they probably think that I'm bored. And it's like, no, I'm not bored. Like I just randomly yawn. So now Kyle jumps in and she brings up that the person who robbed their house a few years ago actually contacted them and said, hey, we have all your stuff. It's at our grandmother's house. So Kyle says that she sent the robber a small amount of money to get their stuff back, not all of it. And then she says the robber got freaked out and was like, I feel like you're working with the police. And she's like, look, I don't care about the police. I just want our stuff back. Like, that's it. Like, send me the stuff. So now Erika says, you sent him money? Are you serious? Like, that's not cool. What you experienced was a shakedown. And I was thinking, I understand she just wanted her stuff. And when you're desperate to get your stuff back, you'll do anything. So I could see why she would pay this man some money to get the stuff back, not even care about the cops. Because it's like, look, I want my things back by any means necessary. I remember Kyle saying that she had a lot of sentimental items that were stolen, like things that her mom had and things that, you know, her kids had, and she wanted that back. Now, Kyle, I will say that the self-centeredness jumped out again, because how do you just interrupt and tell your story about when you were robbed and how the guy reached out to you? It was Dorit's portion to talk about herself. So now we finally get to the Crystal portion of this reunion. And Crystal, this needs to be your last season. Like, I had secondhand embarrassment watching you bomb during your own segment. So anyhow, Andy starts it off discussing Crystal's eating disorder. So now Andy reads a viewer question asking Crystal, as somebody who also suffers from an eating disorder, your biggest fear is somebody walking in on you while you're binging or purging. And was that the reason why she was so upset when Sutton walked in on her when they were in Tahoe last year? So Crystal says, no, that wasn't the reason, but it was attached to her body dysmorphia. So now Andy turns to Kyle and he reads a viewer question asking her, why was it okay for Kyle to bring up her eating disorder, but not for Sutton to bring up her miscarriages when she was talking to Diana at Garcelle's birthday party? Now I said, thank you, a question that we desperately wanted to know, because Kyle, like I've always said, always brings the conversation back to herself, and I cannot stand it. So Kyle is sitting there looking stupid, and she's like, well, I mean, look, I acted terribly at Garcelle's party, okay? Like, blame the tequila. I had so many tequila shots. And it's like, take accountability for what you've said. And it's so funny to me. For somebody who is always blaming it on the tequila, why don't you ever promote your sister's tequila, huh? All this tequila you drink, but yet not one word about Kathy's Casa del Sol. So Kyle says, look, the words came out wrong. And I said, Kyle, what you need to say is, Sutton, I'm sorry, I was dead ass wrong. How can you tell Sutton that she can't share what she went through? She has every right. We always have to hear what you went through anytime somebody else brings up what they've gone through. It's irritating. And if I were Sutton, I would have pressed Kyle on an apology. Like, Kyle, I need to hear I'm sorry out of your mouth. And Erika is another person who can apologize, can admit to when she's wrong, because when Andy read the viewer question to her, asking her, why would you think that it was okay to tell a person who has an eating disorder to go and just take some laxatives? Like, who does that? And then when Erika was like, well, no, I was just saying what I would do if I had an eating disorder. That's all I meant. Like, it came out wrong. And then she says, look, I grew up in a dance studio, so I know what it's like. And I said, okay, and we don't care. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Like, girl, what are you saying right now? It's just anything to deflect and not take ownership. So Erika finally owns up to what she said was wrong. Now I said, okay, Erika, let's go one step further and add an I'm sorry. Can you do that? Can you just own that, please? No? You really can't do it? So now Andy reads another viewer question directed at Dorit, asking Dorit why did she feel that it was okay to share with the rest of the women about Crystal vomiting. So Crystal makes it clear that she was pissed when she saw that, and how Dorit was wrong for sharing that to the group, how they had a private conversation, and that was supposed to be between her and Dorit. So Dorit turns around and she's like, really? Like, I had no idea. I had no idea that you were upset by that. Like, oh my gosh. And I said, Dorit, don't play dumb. That was not your business to tell. Let's use common sense here. You know what is okay to share and what is not. There are certain things that if you tell me, I have more than enough sense to say, you know what? This is something that stays between me and this person. This is not casual gossip. This is not spilling the tea. This is what you said stays with me, and I am not saying anything. If you want to share it, that's fine because that's your business, but this stays between me and you. Period, point blank. I was pissed when Dorit shared that because she was wrong. And it was not out of a place of concern. She did that to gossip. The Fox Force 5 doesn't care about Crystal like that anyway. So for Dorit to act like, well, I shared it under the guise of I care about you, that's BS. I was just so surprised, like, Dorit, you have the audacity to play dumb. Like, are you serious right now? Now they start discussing the dark comments that Sutton allegedly made. So Andy says, look, Crystal, you refused to reveal anything about what was said, and we've been dying to know what these dark comments were. So Crystal says, I feel like I need to give context to this situation because that was my first time ever speaking to Sutton, but now after knowing her, I would not have that same feeling if we had had that same conversation. So I was like, girl, what? A dark comment is a dark comment regardless of how long I've known somebody. So what you're saying makes no sense. So even Andy's confused and he's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because you had already gotten to know Sutton when you brought up these dark comments from last year. Now you know that you've messed up when Andy's actually giving his opinion about things and he's not going off of viewer questions. So Crystal says that it wasn't a specific thing that was said. It was the overall feeling and tone of the conversation. So now everybody is confused, like, what? I was sitting there like, excuse me, what do you mean the general feeling and the general tone? Like, you specifically said that dark comments were made by Sutton. Now it goes from that to the general feeling of the conversation made me feel a type of way. That's not how this works, Crystal. So Andy says, but why not just say that it was a general feeling and not a specific thing that was said? So now Crystal says, well, did I not express that? And all the ladies say, no, girl, you kept saying that Sutton said dark things. You never said that it was a general feeling or tone about the overall conversation. So now Crystal says that she would still say that what was said was heavy and dark. So now Rinna's like, girl, which one is it? Was it heavy and dark or was it the general feeling? Like, what are you saying right now? And Crystal, you should have just owned up to it and said, you know what? I was angry. I want to get some revenge, and I just made this whole thing up. Nothing was said. Because you sat up here and made a jackass out of yourself, you made no sense, and you were caught in a lie. I had so much secondhand embarrassment. I was like, Crystal, just own up that nothing was said. Because had Sutton said something, you would have revealed it. You would have. Let's stop the games right now. And a lot of y'all were trying to fight me in the comments earlier on in this season saying, well, I don't know, I believe Crystal. Sutton gives me Karen vibes, and I think that it's weird that y'all are caping for Sutton. I said, no, we know how Crystal is. Crystal was on Sutton's ass when Sutton said, I don't see color. So had Sutton said something racist, we already know that Crystal would have revealed this a long time ago. Just off of that alone, I already peeped that Crystal was lying. You don't throw stuff out like that and then don't have the receipts to back it up. And you let everybody believe, including the viewers, that it was a racist comment that was said. You had some girl on TikTok talking about she has some inside tea on Sutton and Sutton's daughter, and that girl ended up deleting her TikTok because we were all like, okay, girl, what's tea? Like, where are the receipts? Because you're sounding a whole lot like Crystal. So now Andy interjects again, and he's like, Crystal, when you came on Watch What Happens Live a few months ago, I asked you what was said, and you told me that it was worse. So Crystal at this point looks defeated because it's clear that she's not telling the truth and she's been caught. And she says, but that wasn't the comment that I was referring to. I was talking about the general conversation. So now Dorit jumps in and she says, so basically it was nothing specific. So now Kyle interjects and says, Crystal, you do realize that you are contradicting yourself, and you're pretty much telling us that what you said in La Quinta wasn't the truth. Now, it's a sad day when I have to side with Kyle or Rinna or Erika or Dorit. I was just so sad. But Crystal was not being honest. So now Garcelle jumps in and says, Crystal, you kept repeating at La Quinta that what Sutton said was so dark and so awful that I was like, can you please tell me? Because if Sutton said something racist, then I now have to reevaluate our friendship. So I was begging you to just tell me what was said. And I knew that something was up when Crystal refused to tell Garcelle what was allegedly said. Because I'm thinking, now Crystal, you know damn well that if Sutton is racist and you see that this black woman is hanging out with her, you need to go and tell her what was said. So when she didn't even want to tell Garcelle, I said, okay, she's lying. So Kyle says, it just feels like you wanted to make Sutton out to be this racist. Crystal denies it. Crystal denies that and says that she wasn't trying to make it seem like Sutton was a racist. And then Erika says, Crystal, that's a cop-out. And again, my heart hurt that I was agreeing with Erika, but here we are. So now Crystal says that the hot tub comment that Sutton made last year about how her daughter Porter had a black friend over and a Chinese friend over and an Irish friend over at their house, she thought that that was uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, as a black person, I know that I don't speak for all black people. I'm not trying to. But as for me, I didn't feel a way when Sutton said that. She was just expressing that she's happy that her daughter has friends of other races and they're welcome at her house. I don't understand what the big deal is. I think that Crystal was grasping at straws and she's reaching. And if it did make you uncomfortable, let me know down below, but I did not see the big deal in her saying that. And when Andy asked Sutton how she felt about all this, Sutton said, look, I understand where I messed up last year. I said some things that I shouldn't have said last year, and I've learned a lot and I'm growing. We all know that I'm not racist. And she says that her and Crystal are friends and they've moved past it, and she wants the group to show respect as well. Now, Sutton, please don't ever make me agree with Rinna and Erika ever again, because when Rinna and Erika said, excuse me, why is this okay? Like, why is this just smoothed over and you're not even upset about it? I agreed with them. It really could have been over for you had everybody just taken what Crystal had said as the gospel truth. I don't understand how Sutton is able to just forgive and forget that. Like, okay, well, we moved on and it's fine. Why can't the group move on? No, because anybody who can lie like that, I don't want to be around them. And Sutton, you need to grow a backbone. Crystal cannot speak to me ever again lying on me like that. There's just no way. Andy had me screaming. It is evident that he does not really care too much for Crystal, because he said, I'm glad that you and Sutton are on good terms now, but I spent 3 episodes wondering what was said. Then he goes on to say that the moral of the story is don't insinuate that something racist was said when it really wasn't. And I'll bet money that Crystal does not return for next season. And I won't be mad at that because I thought that Crystal was boring. I don't think that Crystal brings a whole lot. She's just there. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess. Every time there's a Crystal scene at her house, I'm like, you know, like, when is this over? Can we get to the next scene, please? So now Dorit says, look, Crystal, it feels like you were trying to make yourself look good and then throw Sutton into the fire. So Crystal says, not at all. And then she says that she was in an impossible situation. And I was like, Crystal, what kind of drugs are you on? Please let me know. I mean, you are really gonna go down with this lie to the bitter end? Like, what is wrong with you? You were caught in a lie. Nothing was said, just own it. Then for you to act like somebody forced you to make this lie up really killed me. When she was like, my biggest regret is ever talking about this at all. It was like, nobody told you to lie. That's on you. You brought this on yourself. And now you want to sit here and blame somebody else? Like, again, Crystal, what are we talking about? I was like, well, damn, who knew that Crystal was this delusional? So they changed gears in the conversation, and Andy reads a viewer question asking, what did Crystal do to have 14 friends drop her? And they believe it too, because 14 is such a specific number. So Crystal explains that she spoke to Rinna, and she told Rinna that after she got on the show, all these ladies stopped talking to her and she wants to know what to do. So here's where things get confusing. Kyle jumps in and says, well, some of those women were asked to be on the show, that's why. So Crystal agrees and says that's why that happened and how they stopped talking to her before she got on the show. So now Kyle interjects and says, I'm confused. Didn't you say that they stopped talking to you after you got on the show? So Crystal says, no, they stopped talking to me when I got on the show. So Kyle says, again, I'm confused because you just said something different. So now Crystal's like, what's confusing, Kyle? And Kyle says, like I said, you just said they stopped talking to you after you got on the show, and now you're saying before, like I'm confused, it doesn't make any sense. So Crystal clarifies that they stopped talking to her before she started filming for the show. And while Kyle was doing a bit too much, I was like, she's not lying because Crystal isn't making any sense. Now, personally, I believe that Crystal's 14 friends did drop her. I don't know if it was because she was going on this show, but I think that Crystal is very manipulative. I think that she's calculated, and I wouldn't be surprised if she did something kind of crazy or tried to insinuate something about somebody and they were all like, shout out to everybody, I have fun, we don't need her around us.
Oh! Shout out to everybody, I have fun.
I gotta be good.
And then when Kyle said that she had heard the same story too about the 14 friends dropping Crystal, but it wasn't about the show, it was about other things, I said, oh, well, do tell because inquiring minds want to know. But I would not be surprised in the least bit if this did happen because Crystal has some ways about her. That's all I'll say about that. Now, we changed gears and Diana is there virtually, of course, because she's sick with COVID. I love how Andy threw her some shade. He was like, for somebody to be sick, you sure look very good for a sick person. And she was like, oh, Andy, you know, like I am sick. If you had seen me earlier this morning, I said, girl, please. You're not sick, you're just a coward, and you know that you don't have the balls to go up against Garcelle or Sutton face to face. So Andy brings up how Diana has been sending out cease and desist letters to content creators to shut up. And then he brings up the accusations that she was a madam and her book, Room 23, was for call girls. So Diana says that she was really upset to hear this and how the book did a lot of good for a lot of people. I guess the profits went to charity. I guess that's the only reason why she's saying that it was good, but okay. So now Andy wants to know if she knew Jeffrey Epstein because she's been linked to him. And she says that no, she's never met him. And I think that there's a picture of her and him back in 97. And she says that in 97, she was still a refugee living in London with no documentation. So it just makes no sense. And I said, girl, answer the question. Were you friends with him or not? It's as simple as that. Because this answer going around and around the mulberry bush, I'm like, it's a yes or no question, sis. So now Andy addresses Diana's constant lip licking. And she's like, oh my gosh, you know, it's really embarrassing. I've noticed that. And then she admits that it's a nervous tic. I loved how when the camera would turn to Garcelle, Garcelle was either rolling her eyes, looking away, looking at the floor, not paying Diana any attention. I was here for it. Garcelle was not amused in the least bit. So now Andy brings up the whole Philly diva mess. We all remember what happened when Diana stupidly went on Philly Diva's Instagram page and she made that awful comment. And then she claimed that she didn't know what she was saying and how English isn't her first language and she wasn't being racist. So Diana says, I was so mortified by it. When I said black content creators, I just meant like people who are mean and trolling people. It had nothing to do with skin color. So Crystal jumps in and says that when she first saw it, she was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm gonna call her out on this. And then she says that when she got on the phone with Diana, Diana was like, can you believe that there are black content creators out there who troll us? And then Crystal says that after she heard that, she realized that Diana didn't know what she was talking about and she didn't mean it in that way. Personally, I think that Diana pretending like, oh, I was so confused. I meant like they're trolling us and that's what I meant. I'm not buying it. I think that Diana is pretending like she's confused. But if Crystal and all them believe what she's saying, then so be it. But over here, I think that Diana is full of it. Now Andy brings up Diana donating to the plane crash victims, and he wants to know if Erika felt slighted that Diana did that. So Erika says, no, absolutely not. I was happy that she did do it. She was telling everybody to put their money where their mouths are. So Diana says that she couldn't just sit there while there are all these victims and not help. And I don't know about anybody else, but for me and my family, I was always told that when you help somebody, especially monetarily, that you don't speak about it. It's in poor taste. And I find it to be very gauche and it's very off-putting that Diana always needs to pat herself on the back and talk about how many people that she's helped. I didn't like when she made that post directed at Garcelle talking about, I gave the people of your country $1 million and all this food and all this aid. Like, it's just very gross to me. And I just find it to be so disgusting. Like, girl, you're only doing this for show and for a tax write-off. So miss me with all your charitable acts. So now here's where things really get good. Andy brings up Diana being accused of being behind the bots that attacked Garcelle's 14-year-old son, Jax. So Garcelle reiterates that she did think that Diana was behind this, and now Diana's trying to get all smart, talking about, you must think that I'm really evil then. You obviously have a low opinion of me to think that I would attack a 14-year-old child. And I said, yes, Diana, collectively, we do think that you're evil. I would not put it past you to do something like that. So I said, girl, I would just shut up if I were you. I wouldn't say too much. So Garcelle says, and by the way, Diana sent me a threatening text. So now Diana wants to make herself the victim in true Karen fashion. And she says that she received threats as well. And I said, girl, we're not talking about you right now. It's about Garcelle and her son. I could give a damn about any texts or any messages that you got. I don't care. Because you've been so nasty and so vile this entire season. So Garcelle says that Diana was upset with her and Jax because Jax had reposted that nasty comment being sent to him about, if it weren't for your white daddy, you would have had a knee in your neck. And at the end of that comment, it says, and leave Diana alone. So he reposted it on his Instagram and he said, you've gone too far. So Diana was upset and felt like Jax should have removed her name off that comment because people started coming after her. So Garcelle makes it clear that her son was so distraught when all this happened that when he posted that, he was not thinking about anybody but himself. And I said, as he should. He's a child being harassed. He has every right to deal with this as he sees fit. And Diana will be okay as a grown woman, almost 50 years old, if her name was in that comment. There was no sympathy, and for her to try to low-key blame a child like he's at fault, I said, you have got to be kidding me. I was so pissed. So Diana says, I was just saying, no, just pencil out my name so that we can protect both of our families. That's all I was saying. So Garcelle says, Diana, what don't you get? My son was really upset, really distraught. He was not thinking about anybody else in the moment but himself. So now Kyle interjects because God forbid Kyle is not involved in a conversation. So she's like, well, Diana's just saying that maybe Jax could have just cropped her name out of it and then reposted it later without her name in it. And when I tell you that Garcelle went off when Kyle said that, she was like, Kyle, are you effing kidding me right now? She said, in the middle of defending my son, I gotta sit here and save all y'all? Like, that's not happening. And I said, Garcelle, you better go off. I was screaming. I was so happy. They were not expecting that. Garcelle started yelling. I said, girl, go ahead. It has been 3 seasons of you dealing with their BS, and it's time to let them know that you are not the one or the two. I was here for it. And it shows you, just in general, unfortunately, a lot of white women will center their feelings above everybody else's. There will be a black person struggling in pain, and a white woman will find a way to make it about herself and how she felt. And it drives me insane. This 14-year-old biracial boy is being bullied and harassed by millions of people, and now you want to turn this back on you and how you felt and how he should have cropped your name out? Absolutely not. I was like, it's not about any of y'all right now. It is about Garcelle and her family and their well-being. And you guys need to respect that. Diana, you said it yourself earlier this season. You want me to be the new villain? You want to be the villain, so here it is. You don't get to play villain and victim at the same time. That's not how this works, and I will continue to say that. So, of course, you have Erika trying to be slick, talking about, you don't need to save me. And I said, girl, shut up. I said, in this moment, keep your mouth closed, because had Garcelle cursed you out, it would have been well-deserved. You know good and well what she's saying. So Diana's trying to placate Garcelle, and she says, sweetheart, I understand, but my family got death threats too. And I said, but once again, Diana, we're not discussing you right now. It's about Garcelle and Jax. You have people calling this boy everything but a child of God, talking about he deserved a knee in his neck. So now Andy wants to know what was the threatening text that Diana sent to Garcelle, and Garcelle says that if something happens to her family, then she's coming after Garcelle. So Diana tries to defend herself, and she's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying. And Garcelle says, nope, a threat is a threat. You threatened me and told me that you would come for me. So we're not going to sit here and act like you didn't threaten me, sis, because you did. And I wish that Garcelle would have torn her up via text for that. I would have said, girl, who the F do you think you're talking to? Like, how dare you? You have all your fans and stans and robots harassing my child, but now you want to threaten me. The safety of Diana's family isn't more important than the safety of Garcelle's family. Let's start there. You're not any more special, sis. And then Diana trying to grasp at straws, trying to garner sympathy, talking about somebody in her family was murdered. And then she says, my family was murdered. My family was murdered. I was like, girl, what are you talking about? Garcelle was so done at this point. She was like, I don't want to talk to her anymore. I'm done. That's it. And Diana was just sitting there on the little computer looking so dumb. Diana made a true ass of herself. You want to turn this around and make it like you and your family are now the victims. So now Diana tries to offer up an olive branch, and she's like, look, I will help you find out who did this to your son. I have the resources to hire lawyers and a team. And Garcelle's like, yeah, girl, that's nice. I already have an investigation pending on this already. Like, I don't need your help. I said, that's right, Garcelle. Let her know that you don't need any of her money or any of her help. You have your own. I would have said, Diana, don't talk to me. I'm not accepting any favors from you. Like, leave me alone. So now Andy wants to know if Diana was face-to-face at this reunion, what would Garcelle say to her? Garcelle says, I would ask Diana, why is she so obsessed with me? And then Diana tries to joke around and she's like, because you're gorgeous. Garcelle ignores her and she says that Diana harasses her on social media all the time, sometimes twice a day, and she is sick of it. And if you go and look at Diana's Instagram, there are several posts directed towards Garcelle. She has been shading the hell out of Garcelle, just being really crazy, talking about, is this what a fan favorite does? Like, you know, she's a terrible person, she's this, she's that. I mean, multiple posts about Garcelle. Like, it's sickening. Because why does Garcelle live in your head rent-free? And if you claim that you don't like Garcelle, then why are you always talking about her? I'm just saying, if you truly don't care about somebody, you're not talking about them 24/7. Diana is a weirdo. So Garcelle says, Diana, I just want to make this clear. I don't hate you, but I need you to leave me alone. And that's where we end this first part. And when I say that I was thoroughly entertained, I was so happy that Garcelle stopped the madness. It was no time to be talking nice and being polite. I was glad when she got angry and started yelling, because that's what these ladies deserve. They have pushed her to this moment where now you guys don't respond to my kindness. So now I have to let you know that this really isn't what you want. I was glad that Garcelle told Diana, just leave me the F alone, sis. Like, you're a loser, you're obsessed, you're a weirdo. Stop talking about me, stop posting about me, stop tweeting about me. Diana deserved every bit of Garcelle clocking her like that. But y'all, I'm excited for these next two parts, especially when we get to Kathy Hilton joining and clearing Rinna. I can't wait. Like, I am going to be here with bells on. Do you hear me? But y'all, that was my recap. I hope you all enjoyed, and you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all later. Bye.